Hi family, thanks for watching. Spring's always a tricky time of year for us. Winter, we have no problem. You make proper decisions in autumn, you should be good for the full winter. But in spring, it is so weather dependent on what to do and when to do things. Um, and of course, we left for 2 weeks on holiday and all sorts of wild things happened. Now, don't get me wrong. We got to go on an amazing trip to the northeast of the States. We flew into Pennsylvania, then drove through upstate New York to Canada to see the Niagara Falls while the solar eclipse was going on. Unfortunately, weather didn't allow us to see much of the solar eclipse, but what we did see was pretty spectacular. And before we left, we tried to take care of our bees and set them up so that we could come back in 3 weeks and sort them out. However, weather did not go as we expected. Weekend before we left, we weren't able to look at the girls because it was raining quite persistently. So we got in there like on a Wednesday before we left and looked at the forecast of the following week, which looked like it'd be going up in temperature. We set them up with plenty of space and took away their feeders, gave them supers, so that as it warmed up, they would have plenty of space to expand into. Of course, it snowed instead, which was really aggravating because, especially Green Hive, we had to make a decision about it because it had gone through all of its honey stores from the winter. But we were worried about getting it warmer and not having enough space to spread out into once the brood hatched and everything like that. So I have a fear that one of our hives may have swarmed. And Green Hive isn't looking particularly active, so we'll get in there, see how they've been doing. Yeah, we'll see what we've got. I'm gonna start with Green Hive because it's the one I'm most nervous about. Now I should clarify with Green Hive, it did have honey stores in the super, but we put a queen excluder on. Now a lot of people don't like queen excluder. Perfect point is that if all the honey stores are in the super, you have a massive freeze drop like we did, and the hive moves up into the higher parts of the supers, they'll leave the queen alone and she can freeze. We keep the queen excluder on because usually we're trying to do this very quickly, get in and out, and we've learned from past years because we found we can get through a hive a lot faster when we can just take the supers away. As with all decisions you make with beekeeping, you kind of just have to weigh the pros and cons, take your personal situation into consideration. I mean, you can go online and watch people like us and get ideas of how they do it to inspire you, but at the end of the day, you just got to do what works by trial. Find out what works by trial and error. You can already see this hive starting to fly at me a little bit. Like I said, Green Hive's definitely one of our more protective hives. It's not a bad thing. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a hostile hive. Far stretch from the imagination of that. Oh dear. This has been completely emptied of all of its honey. Try to make good choices. You try to plan in advance. Grab a magnifying glass. I used to make fun of my grandmother as a child because she always had a magnifying glass in every drawer and pocket and wherever around the house and on her purse and whatnot. And sadly now I'm at that age. Karma's coming back to bite me, but I can't quite see if there's eggs in there. All right, a lot of pollen, a lot of larvae, and I need a bigger magnifying glass. Ooh, there's a capped queen cell in there. That's not good. So I'm really hesitant to remove that without making sure I see eggs. Or the queen, I guess. I guess that's another thing I can look for. Now, swarming in of itself is not a bad thing. It just means that the ones you tend to buy are super docile. As you take a chance every time your hive swarms that you're not going to get another docile hive to replace it. Last year, green hive swarmed on us, so it may have a propensity to do as such. Well, the good thing about green hive is if we did lose our queen, either she swarmed or she got too cold and hurt and rejected, is that we've got plenty of queen cells in here to replace her with. So I'm not too stressed on that aspect. But I'm going to leave all the queen cells in there. I'm not going to take them out. Well, it's 2 years in a row that green hive has started over in the spring. It is so gut-wrenching to spend all that time succeeding over winter to get to the very end of the finish line and be like, oh no, I'm sorry, your contestant decided to leave. I know it's not mites that caused the queen to leave because we did a mite count before we left. And bees are really cool. They can regulate their own heat for the most part. When it's really hot, they flap their wings to act as air conditioning. When it's really cold, they flap their wings to produce heat for everybody. Don't ask me how exactly that works, but that's the basic mechanics. Uh-oh. Hold on a second. We got nice capped brood, honey on the edges, beautiful laying pattern. That's a really good sign. I do see a queen cup, so let's see if there's anything in the queen cup. There is something in the queen cup, but there are multiple stages of larva. Am I seeing eggs is the question. Total frame full of brood with just a smidge of honey in the very corners. All right, we have several capped queen cells here. I want to make sure I see my queen before I do anything to those things. I see no eggs. I do see very, very young larvae. Oh, there's eggs. There's 2 eggs out of this whole batch. I don't know what to do. I think I'm going to leave the queen cells in. If there is a queen in here, the new queens will be hatched and fight her, and there'll be a little transition period. I don't know why, but I'm getting kind of depressed about doing this, feeling inadequate. Come on, Orange Hive, give me something positive to look at. Definitely more population in here than there was when we left, before we left. Don't see any queen cups. Now, under normal circumstances, I would clean this burr comb up. I'm getting tired, so today it's not going to happen. Next time I'll do it. I'm not seeing any queen cups on this one, so I'm not even going to worry about. I might check this one, just this last frame, just to be safe. I saw good things. I didn't see the queen, but I'm going to close it up and call it a day. Go get some water. Oh, frickin' heck. Alright, I'm making lots of mistakes. I'm pissing the bees off. I think it's a good sign. I need to be done. Anyway, after I had a chance to cool down, drink some water, I went and looked up everything that I had seen, and I don't know why in my head I confused the drone and the queen, but I always assumed the queen took the longer amount of time. But actually, it's the drone that takes the 24 days. The queen only takes 16 days. So, in essence, you would need to check your hive every 2 weeks during swarm season, which is now. And for whatever reason, we were thinking every 3 to 4 weeks was plenty fine. With Purple Hive, I'm pretty convinced it literally swarmed the day before we got in there, which is a bit of a bummer because um, if we'd been paying attention better, we probably could have prevented it. With Green Hive, though, from the indication of the size of the larva and the time that those larvae developed from when they were laid by the queen, I suspect something happened to Green Hive Queen because it coincides with the random April deep freeze that we got while we were on vacation. And you can do your best to try to prepare your hives, but I think ultimately what happened was we gave Green Hive too much space too soon, in anticipation of the weather going up and their production levels going up, but in actual reality, the opposite happened. So, learned a great lesson again, trial by fire. During like late March, April, it's best to be checking your hive every 2 weeks to make sure that they've got everything they need and they don't leave you. During the summer, we usually tend to push out our inspections to once or twice a month. The winter, we don't really do anything at all. And in the autumn, we're usually just preparing for the winter. So it'll be interesting to see how our honey harvest goes this year. Orange hive is looking spectacular. Green hive and purple hive are descendants of our original green hive, which was a very prolific queen, and maybe they have a propensity to swarm. So if we do split any hives, we will probably insist on splitting orange just to keep those genetics going. But orange is definitely a little further behind and is not ready yet to be split. So maybe next year it will be. Anyways, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.